Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Legacy of Yang Chen chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 35, which is called Truth. So this is a really good chapter. This is where we basically get the kind of resolution on kind of Kavik's dynamic with the rest of the team. Not Yang Chen, that will come, but the rest of the team, which has probably almost been maybe like the worst dynamic in the book. This is where we resolve it. This is where we get the full reveal about what the plan actually was. We see the kind of telling the story a little bit out of order, kind of like fully, brought back around here. And we'll discuss how well or not that has actually worked in this case. But they do some really, really strong stuff here as they kind of pull everything together. So we jump in here and we get like a scene, in the present day, then we'll go to yesterday and so on. So we do get, again, the idea. Akudan, Taigum, and Kavik have Kalyan kind of captured, of course. But the act, remember, is still up at this point. So Akudan and Taigum are still acting like they don't like Kavik just as much as they don't like Kalyan. And so Kalyan's like, you better kill me. If the two of you have any sense, you'll cut my throat right now. And he just goes on and explains that, like, if you let me live and I get another chance, I'm going to, like, butcher you. And they're just like, ooh, big talk, big talk. Maybe we should check Kavik's bandages again and see what's going on there. Threatening to further injure him. And Kalyan's like, no, please, no. But at this point, Kavik is the one who basically just gets up and is like, okay, let's stop the ruse here, please. We don't need to have this go on any longer. He's given us the information. That's the whole idea. It mentions it here, they're supposed to maintain the ruse until Jujinta returned, but he didn't want his brother to go through any more of this kind of emotional torture here in this situation. It is this kind of wild situation that they're in where, Kavik has made his decision, but he obviously still cares to a certain extent about his brother. But the whole point of this is that he has made the tough choice and he kind of has come out of it realizing that, like, this is the right choice. It's not great what I kind of have to do here, but this was the right decision to make. So we get the reveal here. The wound that Jujinta inflicted on him was nowhere near as deep or dangerous as they were trying to get across. But the reason they were able to get across that it was dangerous was because of the kind of way in which Jujinta kind of inflicted the wound, and then they had a little bit of kind of stagecraft type stuff going on here, where Akudan has a kind of straw that leads to a big kind of bag of kind of blood lacquer, which obviously was set up from one of the previous like Iwashi scenes, because he had like the blood lacquer table, and they explained that blood lacquer is a kind of big thing in the kind of art kind of aspect of Taku. So it makes sense why like this is something that they would use, but it's a clever reference ultimately of like, this is fake blood here, and in the heat of the moment Kalyan was not able to see through it. And this is a true example of they have truly gotten one over completely over Kalyan. And you can see here, Kalyan blinked once. All the time he needed to realize he'd been had. He listed to the side like a ship blown by an unexpected gale. His worldview probably needed more than a few adjustments. And this is a big moment for Kavik. It says here, like he had never beaten his older brother at anything before. And now he has delivered this kind of crushing defeat upon his brother here. But he doesn't feel super proud about it. It's not framed as being this like, yes, Kavik finally did it style moment in terms of like the way in which this had to be done. Like he had to get the victory by kind of emotionally kind of like torturing his brother. And it says here, not when he'd exploited the one bond that hadn't broken since their childhood in the north. And yet he knew he'd make the same choice all over again if he had to. So that's the kind of point here. And in a way, it's an unusual dynamic within the book where they've been framing the idea of almost like all the villains are making their moves out of a loyalty to family. That a lot of even Kavik has made these kind of betrayal moves in the basis of, I want to support my family. And it's almost it's framed here as this like big heroic moment, like Kavik going against his brother. But in this specific instance, you realize that this is what needed to happen because the relationship between the two brothers was, toxic to a certain degree. It was very much completely at this point framed around the idea of Kalyan having this kind of dominance, this thing over his brother of like, I have saved your life so many times, you owe me. And that's what their relationship had become. Because ultimately, outside of Kalyan's like sort of not wanting Kavik to die, basically, he never treats his brother like particularly well in a lot of these situations. He'll protect him, but he's still using him in so many of these situations. So this is kind of in a way Kavik kind of returning the favor, finally realizing that I don't want you to die. He doesn't want Kalyan to die, but he's now in a situation where, he can make the decision to go against his brother, which he wasn't able to do in the first book. And we're going to see here, like I suppose, in this flashback little section of the chapter here, how exactly this plan came about. So, yesterday. And this immediately is a direct, continuation of a chapter from quite a while ago at this point. But the one that obviously ended with the idea of Yang Chen telling Kavik of like, basically, how did you feel when, you were told, let Chai-Si win? Is this basically why you betrayed me in the first place? And we just got the idea that Kavik felt that he needed to make a choice here. And now we're kind of getting the direct continuation of that scene here. So that's kind of what's happening here. So Yang Chen is like, she's already won. We're out of time. We have to shift into damage control. And she just wants ideas. What can we do? She's now looking for suggestions. Some of her plans haven't quite worked out, so what's going to happen here? And Akudan and Taigum initially come up with some ideas of like, okay, just pass it off as spirit, say there's a spiritual disturbance. That's a natural way to kind of prevent the world leaders from coming in. Warn them that there's some sort of an ambush coming in, but like, no, that's not going to work because the tensions between the nations are so high. If your explanation isn't absolutely perfect, that's just going to basically start the war that we're kind of trying to prevent from happening. That's the whole idea here. So it then obviously comes around to Kavik. Does Kavik have an idea? And he's like, you can't give in like this, but she's ready to give up. Didn't you hear me? The game's over. We've lost. There's nothing left to do except grovel in front of Chai-Si and pray she doesn't hurt us anymore. And Kavik points out, that's just it. Up until now, we've been playing for break even, reacting to the enemy. We haven't tried to hurt them back. My brother is Chai-Si's right hand, and he's in Taku. We attack her through him, and we go after him through me. And obviously, this brings up with the rest of the team the idea of, wait, really? You want us to trust you on this? That like you will basically betray your brother now, even though you betrayed us for your brother before? Like, really? Like, and this is what we've been building to, is this conversation really coming out, like truly challenging Kavik over this idea of, in this exact situation, why won't you make the same decision you made before this time? Kavik says, I won't. In fact, I'm going to burn him, or at least threaten to. I'm the only person in the city who can lure him out of hiding, and once I do, I'll let him know that I'll spill his past as Hansha's plant to Chai-Si. We all know what she does to plants. And they note that, you would be basically threatening him with torture and death from Chai-Si. And he's just like, yes, he'll have to flip to our side and give up Thapa. At this point, Yang Chen steps in and is just like, give us the room. Like, let me and Kavik talk one-on-one here. And when they leave, she immediately asks, is this a ploy in service of the White Lotus? And Kavik is just like, no. I think we have to cut them out of the operation. Just don't give them any information on this. Kind of in a way, I'm done messing around with them because they are more interested in seizing control of Thapa than just stopping him. And this is Kavik truly saying, I've made my choice and I agree with you. This is the time to just step in and basically protect people, not try and gain control of assets. That's the whole idea here. And Yang Chen then has her moment of like, what's different this time? Are you making this choice because you feel bad about Nujian? Is it because of what you saw on the island? Are you like extremely guilty? Is that what's happening here? Because right now you are siding with us, whereas you picked your brother, your family before. And Kavik points out that like you need to trust me, like you did with the Iwashi thing, like the Sparrow Bones incident. Like we were working super well together there, and you trusted me. But she's like, that was for money, a lot of money, but still a pretend matchup with made-up rules. This is for the world. This is for my. And she stops and realizes she was about to say something that she really, she like never wants to, likes to say, but she was about to say it. And the idea is like any words could have finished that sentence, but they were all ones that were like about her specifically. It says here like her reputation, her legacy, her spirit, her conscience, her ability to sleep at night. He wanted so badly to tell her that those were all worthy causes. And how he actually kind of gets through to her here is like, he says, I've been thinking about a piece of advice Jujinta gave me. He told me I have to balance the books. That's what matters, actions and nothing else. How I feel, how you feel about me is irrelevant. And this is what it comes down to here, is like, it's this situation of Kavik is coming like completely truthfully here, but Yang Chen is in a position at this point where she admits it here. I can't tell when you're lying, Kavik. Like you are that good. I've made one of the biggest mistakes of my life backing you before, and you're now asking me to do it again. Of like, basically, why? Is that the case? And she realizes that this is the best option. She has to do this. This is the only other option, and she kind of is forced to kind of give up, in a way, give into this, because it's at this point it is out of desperation ultimately. And that's the whole idea here. And Kavik like acknowledges this. It says, and in a twisted way, he didn't care that it was only out of desperation. At some point in their lives, everyone needed to be carried home. Let me do this for you, he thought. You shouldn't have to bear the world alone. And so she then gets down to, okay, let's say we do this. I don't think that is a full plan that will win us the day. Your threat can't be empty. Like, are you actually going to do this? Like, when it comes down to it, will you actually burn him to Chai Si? And again, keep in mind, this is prior to him actually learning about the whole Kalyan is the father of Chai Si's child situation. They don't know this at this point. You have to keep that in mind as well. And he does say, if it comes to that, first we'd resort to the backup plan. And what he's explaining here is basically what they did. The idea of basically mentally torturing Kavik through the other members of the team torturing him. And this is how they will, get him. And Yang Chen is immediately like, no, are you mad? We are not doing that. But he's like, he has one weakness. I say we take advantage of it as much as possible. And it's the idea of like they are exploiting a brother's care for his brother. And she says that this kind of ruse you're talking about is reprehensible, little better than actual torture. I can't be party to such a scheme. And Kavik just kind of, in a way, finishes the conversation with that. You'd certainly be tainted if you went along with my plan, Kavik agreed. It's almost like you'd have to atone by spending the rest of your life working to bring balance to the four nations. You might even have to keep going after you die. And Yang Chen is just like, you did not just like say that to me at the end of this conversation. And he's like, what? Did you have different plans in mind for your next life? And she just like flings her blanket at him. So it's this very interesting moment of like, this super serious conversation, and then it ends on this kind of jokey moment, but there's still so much like tension in the air. And then they get to actually eating, because I think it was described a while ago, like when he came back for the meeting, he brought like a bag of like buns with him, and they ignored them the entire like time through, but now they actually start to eat them, and Kavik's just like, glad to be of service, basically. At this point, we get another chapter cut, and we're now back in the kind of present day. So there's a little bit of a kind of skipped time here, and this is where we basically go through the idea of like, okay, we're still catching up. This is still like prior to the Yangchen Thapa battle, but like it's good. We're going to see it basically happen from their perspective. So Jujinta arrives back in, and he's like getting a sense of like where they are in the plan. He's like, okay, you've captured Kalyan, that's great. Have we stopped pretending? And it's like, yes we have. And Kavik's like, did you have to cut me so deep? And Jujinta's just like, I told you it was going to hurt for real. What did you expect? And Kavik is like, you played your part like super well. I'm not going to ask you how you learned to be so precise with your knife wounds that you kind of knew how to give a wound that looks super, super, super bad, but isn't actually that bad. Not going to ask you that, but you did your job really, really well, basically. So at this point, the rest of the team like is getting a little bit kind of tense. They don't know what's happening with the plan, because from their point of view, the information that they gave to Yang Chen, they don't know if that's going to achieve victory. Like, it's information they didn't have, but just having this signal for the attack, is that enough? And so they're in the process of discussing this when the first gong strike happens, then the second, then the third. And Kalyan, at this point, is just like, ha ha ha, we've won here, your fumbling has lost you the game, basically. And they feel that this means it's over. The fact that the signal has actually gone out, they kind of feel that must be the idea that Yang Chen has maybe failed, and they're just waiting for the combustion blasts to start here. And it's actually Kavik who brings the group together. Like, Akudan specifically is noted here as like being in a little bit of like, he's despondent here. It just feels like, it's over. But Kavik is like, he gets the team together, group huddle, believe in her. That's all we can do right now, is just kind of believe in her. And they just have this huddle. It's noted here, the comparison between like, this is basically the same type of huddle Kavik had with his mother and father. Back towards the end of the first book, when the attacks were coming in and Honsha kind of was holding out against everyone trying to come in at him. And it's a really stressful situation here, because the third gong strike happens and they are literally just waiting for it, and kind of knowing in a way that if any explosion goes off, they know that theoretically could be Yang Chen's death. And there's nothing they can do except wait, basically. And it's just everyone tense in their own way. But then, like, around 100 seconds into the huddle, they're like, did the floor shake? Did I imagine it? 200 seconds, and they're like, nothing yet. 300 seconds, and they're like, actually, do you know what? I think our boss just beat your boss, to Kalyan on the floor. And they realize that, like, there's no way they would wait this long. Nothing has happened. I think this is it. And it's just like, after everything we went through, Kavik is just like, everyone's like, they don't know really what to do. They're kind of half celebrating, but it's like, when they don't fully know, is it the time to celebrate? Kavik is just like, are the four of us square? And they're all like, and you think it's getting serious for a moment, but then everyone is just like, yes, it's done. We trust you again. Akudan and Taigum are like, messing up Kavik's hair. Jujinta bursts out laughing at this, which is obviously meant to be like a pretty big moment, given like the tension between those two especially. And it just ends with like, I hate you all. But this is properly the team has formed. Because they've noted in a couple of scenes with the kind of team together, like Kavik noting that there was always some stuff they kept from him, even during the moments like before his betrayal and stuff like that. There were always little secrets, things that made it clear that like the team was never fully a team. They kind of formed randomly in the first book, and then throughout this whole book we've been dealing with the kind of weird situation that Kavik has been in, where his allegiances have been thrown all over the place by basically the people in his life, forced to do this for the Order of the White Lotus, forced to do this for his brother, and he also has a loyalty to Yang Chen as well. And it's finally kind of come around full circle here, and we are just waiting for now the Kavik Yang Chen moment to kind of finish this off, because, you know, this is the moment where we see the rest of them kind of forgive him effectively. But let's not forget that Yang Chen was kind of forced into this situation where, out of desperateness, she's like, we have to go ahead with your mission, as bad as this is, as much as I don't really agree with what you're planning to do. This is what we have to do. And it's sort of like, I hope this time my trust is kind of worth it. And it obviously has paid off, and we're just waiting to see how they actually resolve that. And that's the whole kind of like, in a way, character plot of the book, and this is why it was so good that they didn't resolve this immediately within like a couple of chapters. They took basically the entire book to play with the idea of how these characters feel about Kavik, how Kavik feels about, you know, what he wants to do, and they made it worthwhile, where like I don't think you can argue, I think that they should have done things in a different way. You know, this is really, I think, strongly done the way they've done it over the course of the book. Taking their time, showing the different dynamics with all of these characters, and then really playing up the idea Kavik has to be shown to make a true big play, a big kind of sacrifice play, to show them that this is what he wants to kind of be a part of. And he did it here in terms of finally going against his brother. And, you know, it is this tough thing still, of just like, he has had to betray his brother, put his brother through a lot. But I think he realizes that their dynamic has been changed in a way, like, forever. While Kalyan is this way, they can never really kind of have what they had in the past. And so in this moment, it's kind of him realizing that the Order of the White Lotus are just kind of out for themselves. They, more than anyone, just think they are the best thing going in the Four Nations, and they think they can play the game the best. And in the end, he sides with Yang Chen over them, and he decides with Yang Chen over Kalyan. And that's what you were waiting for. So it's, in my mind, just well executed, well deserved, finally getting to this moment. So, that has been this chapter. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.